Usually. Friday was great.
Welcome, everyone. Let's call the Governance Standing Committee meeting on February 3rd. I'd like to first acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional land of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which is represented by the communities of Saugeen First Nation and Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. We also think of the Métis Nation of Ontario, whose history and people are well represented in Bruce and Grey counties. We have not received any regrets this evening. In accordance with Ontario Regulation 46397, trustees must seek written approval from the board chair to attend the meetings electronically. In order to receive the approval, they must meet the requirements set out in the regulation. Tonight, we have trustee Martin and trustee McComb attending online. Welcome. Our approval of the agenda, is there any new business to add to our agenda this evening? Don't see any. So with that, I look for a mover that the agenda for the Governance Standing Committee meeting for February the 3rd be approved as printed. Trustee Peters? All in favor? Anything else? Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest of any of our items this evening? See none. We have no delegations. So we are to some staff reports, and as we were unable to meet with other in January, we have a fair number of them. So we'll start. First is the Georgian Bay Community School, and I'd like to invite Superintendent Lefebvre to speak to his report on recommendation. I will put the motion on the floor, and then we'll have our presentation. Can I have a mover that Blue Water District School Board consider for approval the Georgian Bay Community School students participate in the Liberation of Italy anniversary of the Battle of Monte Carlo Casino, February 14th to 23rd, 2027, contingent that it aligns with all travel advisories at the time of the trip. Trustee Peters and Wilson.
Thank you, Chair, trustees. I'm going to turn it over to Olivia Buxton, who has a short presentation.
Okay, so students will have an opportunity to visit and experience the excitement, history, and culture of two ancient cities, Rome and Florence. More significantly, students will visit Second World War battle sites, including Monte Cassino and Ortona, the latter being a significant battle in Canadian military history. Our travelers will have the opportunity to visit and pay their respects to the graves of Canadian fallen who were buried in the Morrow River Commonwealth War Grave Cemetery, including some former Meaford District High School students who were killed during the Italian campaign. Part of our visit will be to recognize and commemorate the anniversary of the Battle of Monte Cassino, May 18th, 1944, and attend a community ceremony at Cassino Cemetery. But the focus is not only on Canada's involvement in the invasion of Italy, as students will have the opportunity to explore the sites of Rome, including the Forum, Colosseum, and Vatican City. Further travels to Florence and Bologna will allow students to see cities that were important to the origins of the Renaissance and the cultural and scientific awakening of Europe that took place in the 15th and 16th centuries. The Roman Empire and the Italian Renaissance had a different impact on European culture, language, law, and governance, which led to European expansion into North America. Students will have an opportunity to make connections between these past events, the development of modern Europe, and how this has shaped Canadian culture and Canadian legal and political institutions. We have many students from many different financial backgrounds, and we have started planning fundraising activities over the next year and a half to ensure that every student who has signed up may attend without severe financial burden. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The trip is very similar because we're running in partnership with Owen Sound District Secondary. So I'm not sure if you wanted the other senator or if you want to wait, but maybe we could give the other senator.
What I was wondering is I'll put the other,
Sure.
put two recommendations on. Yeah. And then, Owen, you're gonna present, and then we'll vote on both of them, because I understand. So the second, part of this, and I'll affirm that Blue Water District School Board consider for approval that Owen Sound District Secondary School students participate in the Liberation of Italy anniversary of the Battle of Monte Cassino, May 14th to 23rd, 2027, contingent that it aligns with all travel advisories at the time of the trip. So we'll do this part and then we'll consider them together.
Thank you. I won't bore you with, which is essentially the same speech as Steve learned again. What I will do, however, I will tell my own experiences on my trips such as these. I've been very, very fortunate to have been on two prior trips that this board has approved. The first one was the 8th anniversary of the Liberation. No, it's not Liberation, sorry, the 8th anniversary of D-Day. And one after that, which happened last year, was the 80th anniversary of the Victory in Europe Day. Both trips were incredibly insightful and very, very fun and very wonderful all around. I cannot understate the incredible experience this trip to Italy will give to students in both OCSS and Meaford. It is the experiences are very hands-on, very in-depth, very personal, especially when we visit cemeteries and get to visit the graves of the people who once lived here and are now buried in foreign battlefields. This is done part of Explorica by fantastic tour guides who are very insightful and knowledgeable and do a fantastic job teaching the students, such as myself, about the incredible history of all the many places that we get to go to. Each day is very filled. There's no lounging around whatsoever. There's one location, constantly very busy. And it's very fun, as I say. It is an once in a lifetime experience. I've been very fortunate to experience it twice. This is unfortunately not the reality for most people. As already been stated, we are planning fundraising opportunities already to help students that are not as financially able as others participate, and we would greatly appreciate if you would approve this. I highly recommend it. My two experiences were absolutely phenomenal. Some of the best times of my life happens in Europe with my friends, learning all the history and culture there. Thank you, and please consider this recommendation.
Thank you so much. It's nice to have firsthand experience and hear that when you're talking. Do trustees have questions or comments about either of these trips? I'll start with trustee Lutz and then trustee Judy.
Thank you. Commissioner, first of all, this sounds like a fantastic trip. And my question is just about travel advisories and insurance in general. So I know how it works if there's a specific travel advisory for the specific place you're going. And this is a bit of a what-if question, but what if there are more vague travel advisories, or say one for a neighboring country, or the likes of something that isn't completely specific, but that might make us reconsider the safety of the trip. So I'm just wondering about that, given how quickly things are shifting in the world right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I could have answered the question, however, you put in the caveat neighboring countries. I'm not sure about that one, but I do know that when we have concerns, then they do listen. So if we have a legitimate concern and we need to pull the trip, typically it is covered. But I am not 100% sure if it was to be a neighboring country, whether they might challenge that. I can certainly find out.
Trustee Peters?
The 17,000 fundraising, I guess you're anticipating that, would that just go to offset the group in general or just 2, 3, 4 students?
That's to bring down the cost, sorry, for all the students.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Atkins.
Oh, and I have to agree, it's a chance of a lifetime. I had the privilege to go, the 50th anniversary of D-Day. And there aren't enough words to explain the experience. The only, I have a request, and it's a simple request. Last year I was able to support some of the schools through their fundraisers. And I'm wondering if maybe we could, if you could give, Superintendent Elliott the information of what you might be doing, and she could pass it on to us, and we could maybe support you that way as well. There's nothing better than
Absolutely,
a
yes.
pancake breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll be sure to get in touch with the teacher organizing, and I know him very well. So I will be able to give you all the information regarding fundraising opportunities.
because we know we're in the area, it's nice to be able to come and support our students, but I wish you the best.
Thank you.
When you get with your having students, it's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's three times. That's loud, they're not permitted. So, just further to, further to trustee Peter's, comment or question. I know that in a number of cases, as a principal in our different, parts of Blue Water, oftentimes service groups, would, help support one specific student in some cases. So there may be like a, say a Legion or something that, if a principal knew of a student or a teacher knew of a student who, had a great deal of need in terms of support, then they might be able to approach a service group and get support, more fully, for one particular student. But in general, that fundraising is for all students.
Any other questions or comments? Don't see any. I'm going to read the motion again once. And we'll vote for it, and I'll just substitute the name of the other school. So first we have moved by trustee Peters, that Blue Water District School Board consider for approval that Georgian Bay Community School students participate in the liberation of Italy anniversary of the Battle of Monte Cassino, May 14th to 23rd, 2027, contingent that it aligns with all travel advisories at the time of the trip. All in favor? Thank you. That is carried. And the second one is that Blue Water District School Board consider for approval Owen Sound District Secondary School, moved by trustee Atkinson. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Our next trip is that Owen Sound District Secondaries. Oh. I would like to invite Superintendent of Education Penny Lipset and Owen to speak to this report. First, we'll put the motion on the floor that Blue Water District School Board consider for approval that Owen Sound District Secondary School students participate in the France and Italy 2027, March 18th to March 28th, 2027, contingent that it aligns with all travel advisories at the time of the trip. Could I have a mover? Trustee Atkinson. And welcome.
Thank you again. Yes, this is another trip planned for BWDSB. The previous trip, which you have heard, was organized by the history department. This particular trip to France and Italy is organized by the French department. So it goes from the March 18th, 2027 to March 27th, 2027. And it is a fantastic trip for the students to go and to take a deep dive into French culture and European culture as they travel through France and Italy. They'll be landing in Paris, where they'll be able to see the sights of the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower, the Latin Quarter, and just much more. Be able to taste delicious French food, and will be given a tour through the city, so they can truly get to know and feel the culture of Paris and the wider country. A second here. Yeah. You'll also get to go to Versailles, which I can say from personal experience is an absolutely fabulous place to go to. It's very rich in history, and of course French culture, which is the main goal of this trip. You'll see the sites of Nice as well. We can take a train from Paris through the French countryside to the Mediterranean. We'll get to experience southern France and the Mediterranean influences upon the region. From there, we'll be traveling to Italy, northern Italy. We'll be visiting Monaco, Eze, Pisa, Florence. You can see the sites like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the Gates of Paradise in Florence, Giotto's Bell Tower, Dante's house, and more. We'll go through Italy down to Rome. We'll look to see the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, the Plaza, the Venezia, the Vatican City, the Sistine Chapel, St. Peter's Basilica, the Trinity, Fountain, Spanish Steps, and the Pantheon. And after all of that, and so much more like us, they'll be flying back to Toronto on the 27th. I haven't been to Italy personally. However, I've been to France, and France is a wonderful experience. I have no doubt that Italy will also be a fantastic experience. This trip is more focused on culture, like I said, than the history aspect of the previous two trips. So there will be some remarkable differences. I do know that it will be mostly spoken to in French, so it'll be very, those really is, of course, support for all students going there. Yes, it is, it is a phenomenal experience to go to visit Europe and see all these places. I'm sure you're getting tired of me arguing the same topic, but I can't stress enough just how wonderful an opportunity is for the students of CSS to go on this trip to see new things, meet new people who are very different, who are very unique, who they wouldn't have an opportunity to see before. There's one wonderful place to see, wonderful souvenirs to be had. I'm sure this is one of the best experiences someone of our youth can possibly see. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do trustees have questions or comments? The Johnston.
Thank you. It's not really a question, it's a comment. Looking, because everything you've mentioned and what we're gonna see and do, and I went, how long is this trip? 10 days, it will be a long one. Absolutely, you know.
It will be, as I said earlier, on the previous trip, they're all action packed. We wake up in the morning, have a quick breakfast, then we're on the ground running. We don't come back till the sun is long set.
Other questions or comments? I don't see any. Thank you so much. You did a great job tonight.
Thank you.
It was moved by trustee Atkinson that Blue Water District School Board consider for approval that Owen Sound District Secondary School students participate in the France and Italy 2027, March 18th to March 28th, 2027. Contingent that it aligns with all travel advisories at the time of the trip. All in favor? Next, we have the Grey Highlands School Environmental Studies Program trip. I'd like to invite Superintendent Heather Lipsett to speak to this report. First, we'll put the motion on the floor. Looking for a mover that Blue Water District School Board consider for approval that Grey Highlands Secondary School students participate in the Environmental Studies Program field trips. Flusherton Pond Basic Canoe Instruction Day 1, April 28, 2026. Flusherton Pond Basic Canoe Instruction Day 2, April 29, 2026. Cypress Lake Camping Trip, May 6 to 8, 2026. Bells Lake Canoe Trip, May 12, 2026. Massasauga Provincial Park Canoe Trip, May 27th, 30th, 2026. In Killarney Provincial Park, June 6th to 13th, 2026. Could I have a mover, please? Trustee Morgan. And welcome.
Thank you. Yes, and definitely, yes, we have been able to present this with you.
a teacher down the classroom of great minds, offered to come and was excited to be able to share the trip with you. And as you can see, brought two students that have participated in the program at Great Island. So they also have firsthand experience to share with you. So we have Jocelyn here tonight to present the trips for the package. Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Fairmount Secondary School is excited to continue the Environmental Studies Program, ESP. Again this year, ESP gives students the opportunity to learn outside of traditional classroom, gain valuable outdoor skills and experience, build lifelong friendships, and create lasting memories. This year, students will take part in canoeing trips at Fletcher Pond, Bells Lake, Massasoit Provincial Park, and Claremont Provincial Park. They also participate in camping trips at Cypress Lake, Massasoit Provincial Park, and Claremont Provincial Park. These hands-on experiences allow students to explore diverse ecosystems, examine the impact of human activity on the environment, develop leadership skills, and learn the importance of the environmental stewardship. Both Jocelyn and I took ESP last year, and we both were part of the environmental SHISM. We also did a co-op placement with the junior ESP, which is the class offered to the grade 10s. All these were very amazing opportunities. Not only were they very fun, but they were also very insightful. We earned certifications like standard first aid, bear safety, knot tying, fire safety, WMIS, all sorts. The ESP program provides students with opportunities to participate in activities they may never otherwise do. The environmental studies field trips are not only fun, but incredibly beneficial, helping students build confidence, teamwork, and real-world skills while connecting with their natural environment. Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming and presenting, but I'll see if there are any questions or comments. Trustee Lutz.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing, and it all sounds absolutely wonderful. I'm just looking for confirmation because the wording was a little bit vague in the supplementary materials that all students will be completing a swim test before attending. So if that can be confirmed, that'd be great. Thank you.
Confirmed.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I don't see any. I do know that these programs are excellent. My children went to the Bruce Peninsula District School, which is similar programming, and it's hard work at times. It's fun. You learn lots. It's a great opportunity. So thank you again so much for coming to present to us tonight.
Thank you.
I am not going to repeat the entire motion. Everyone's okay with that, but it was moved by Trustee Morgan. All in favor? I think that is carried. Thank you, Emma. We have another field trip. It's the Georgian Bay Community School Pursuits Program trips. So I'll put the motion on the floor and by Superintendent Day. The Blue Water District School Board consider for approval the Georgian Bay Community School students participate in the Pursuits Program Bruce Trails, Cypress, April 28th to May 1st, 2026. Massasauga, May 26th to 29th, 2026. Temagami, June 11th, June 21st, 2026. Oh, I need a mover.
Thank you, Chair, trustees. The students from our trip might be running into some of you on your trip, just, I think they're. Oh, good, if you know, anyway. I have students, Senator Buckton here to tell you a little bit about the trip.
Now that I look at this, it looks really long, so I apologize for the lengthy time it's gonna be up here. I'll hate it as much as you guys. Okay, okay, so the Pursuits Program is an educational initiative offered at Georgian Bay Community School as part of the Environmental Specialist High Schools major. It allows grade 11 and 12 students to step beyond the conventional classroom, combining rigorous academics with experimental learning. The program fosters personal growth, leadership, and a deep connection to the environment. Students engage in integrated coursework, certifications, and challenging outdoor adventures that encourage resilience, teamwork, and lifelong memories. During the course of this report, I will talk about 3 trips: the Bruce Trail and Cypress hiking trip, the Massasauga canoe trip, and the Tagami canoe expedition. The Bruce Trail and Cypress hiking trip, which will take place from April 28th to May 1st, 2026, is a 4-day outdoor learning experience that provides the students with an opportunity to explore and experience the beautiful and breathtaking environments of the Bruce Peninsula Natural Park. Beyond hiking, students will develop flatwater canoeing and portaging skills on Cypress and Cameron Lakes, blending adventure with skill building. If anyone was like me and didn't know what portaging is, it's the practice of carrying the canoe, kayak, or gear over land to bypass obstacles like waterfalls or to reach navigable bodies of water. You learn something new every day. The trip emphasizes environmental stewardship and the importance of exploring and protecting local natural spaces. The Massasauga canoe trip, running from May 26th to May 29th, 2026, is a 4-day expedition designed to provide students with meaningful hands-on learning experiences. Throughout the trip, participants will engage in leadership-focused activities that allow them to apply and further develop their skills in an authentic outdoor environment, which will help them prepare for their final trip to Tagami. Students will also build confidence through canoeing, hiking, and a variety of camping and team building experiences. This excursion is especially important as it enables students to complete the requirements for their Orca Canoe Tripping Level 1 certification. The Tagami Canoe Trip, running from June 11th to June 21st, 2026, this 11-day journey is the ultimate test of the students' skills, fitness, and teamwork. Set in the pristine wilderness of the Tagami region, students apply all the skills they've learned throughout the program, from canoeing, tripping, to group dynamics. It is both a physical and emotional challenge, leaving participants with lifelong memories and a profound sense of accomplishment. While I have not been in the Pursuits program myself, I have a handful of friends who have taken the course and absolutely loved it. They always talk about the skills and friendships they made through Pursuits. Thank you.
Thanks so much. You did a great job and it does blend very beautifully.
Yes.
It explains the value of the program. So thank you. Trustees have questions or comments? Trustee Lutz.
Thank you, and thank you for the great presentation. I just want to ask about swim tests. First of all, it was not mentioned in the main forms at all, only in the supplementary material. So I just want confirmation that everyone will be completing the swim test, especially because in the supplementary material, there was clearly the option to challenge out of it. So I just wanted to confirm that every student would be completing the swim test. Thank you.
Thank you. So we did change that process a few years ago. I must have missed that in here, but I will ensure that we follow the same process we have for the last number of years. And Mr. Card has that. They all the things.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Johnstone.
I didn't hate it at all.
Once again, I'm not going to repeat the entire motion, but it's moved by trustee Johnson. All in favor? That brings us to the end of our field trips. Thanks, everybody. Next we have, I'd like to invite Director Keane to speak to the school year calendar. Could I have a mover that the Blue Water District School Board consider for approval the modified 2026-2027 draft elementary and secondary school year calendars for submission to the Ministry of Education? Could I have a mover, please? Trustee Lutz? Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have before you the 26-27 school year calendar report. There are a few changes to this annual process that I'd like to highlight. First of all, we did have our meeting in which we have a calendar committee. We met on January 16, 2026. I would say that a number of the suggestions that came out of that meeting, we've incorporated. So it's valuable to see input from our partners, the union leaders and school leaders as well. First of all, it is 194 learning days, which includes 7 professional activities and 10 examination days. That is not new. The first day of school is definitely going to be new. School board is faced with the challenge of Labor Day being very, very late in the year. So in order to meet the requirements of starting in September and ending in June, we will have 2 professional activity days prior to the first day of school for students. You'll see those will be on the Wednesday and Thursday before the Labor Day weekend. We also had a suggestion that we followed up with, this is considered a modified calendar because we are not using the recommended March break dates that the ministry puts out. The ministry days are March 15th to whatever 5 days you want. Thank you. However, that week is followed by a short 4-day week with Good Friday and then another 4-day week with Easter Monday. So we are recommending that we move the March break up a week so that we have a little bit more learning time before we get that Easter weekend break. And finally, you have the list of the PA days that will be followed. We have some PA days that are part of collective agreements. And so, well, I do believe it's a bit of a challenge that we do not have sort of a mid-spring PA day because we require 2 of those days to start this week. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Trustee Atkins.
June 1st, the Ontario Day in school. Would you tell me a little more about that?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. I should have mentioned it. June 1st is a required recognized day that the British government has required all school boards to recognize it. It is a school day for all kids. It is not a holiday. We cannot run EQA on that day. We cannot have a PA day on that day. And beyond that, we do not have any direction in terms of things we need to do or not do beyond the EQA ultimately.
Thank you.
Trustee Lutz.
Thank you. You addressed my one question about PA days, but the mid-spring one. There would be some, I don't know if there's any concern about that with balancing for collective agreements and that, but given your comments about modifying March breaks, I do have a question about the PA, and PA days now in October as it creates a 3-day school week rather than having it a week earlier so that it's 4 and 4 or something like that.
Yes, thank you for that. We talked at length about that PA day, about moving it into the spring. As valuable as we believe we can make the PA days be at the beginning of the school year, it's also very important, sort of end of September, early October, that we have a PA days for schools to be able to find out where the students are in terms of their screening, assessments, and their school improvement planning. So we really needed to keep that there. We did wish it to be on the 23rd, but we are coinciding with our co-terms board. They have I don't know exactly what it is, but it has to do with religious studies on the 23rd. And so every day that we have different than the Catholic board costs money in transportation. So keeping it aligned there. So for that reason, we sort of conceded that day to stay on. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions, comments? Trustee Lutz.
I have one question that it's not uniquely new to this year, but it's something I've wondered for a long time and I'm wondering more. Is there any possible way, and I figure I know the answer, but for secondary exams to start on a Monday so that they aren't attending classes and submitting work right up till they're then writing exams? In some cases, 9 hours after things are due. So I'm just wondering if there's any way to address that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lutz, through you, Chair. We need to split the day in half, or the year in half. And so you will see that we have a PA day on a Wednesday, which is very unusual. But that is because if we don't split directly in half, it has some serious implications from a human resources and payroll perspective, moving from one semester to the other. Thank you for the question. I will say that, given our struggles this winter with exam schedules in the last winter as well, that there are senior teams having conversations about secondary exam schedules and what that looks like. So we are of course scheduling those in as required. And those days will remain there, but we are putting together a group to look at exam schedules.
Any other questions? I don't see any. I just want to, as a member that sat on the committee, just to let you know, it was a lot of conversation, good suggestions. And many of them are incorporated in what you see before you now. So it was moved by trustee Lutz, that the Blue Water District School Board consider for approval the modified 2026-2027 draft elementary and secondary school year calendars for submission to the Ministry of Education. All in favor? We are down to, our next is the education BQAO results for 2024-2025. I'd like to invite Superintendent Lefebvre. Welcome.
Thank you. Chair, trustees, the Education Quality and Accountability Office, or BQAO. We have testing that takes place every year, grades 3, 6, 9, which are reading, writing, and math. Grade 9 mathematics and our MTH1W cohort. And then our OSSLT, or Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test, for grade 10 students. And that is a high stakes test because they need to pass it in order to graduate. So I'm just going to bring my presentation here. There we go. So I wanted to go through this. You have the report in front of you. I want to highlight some things. I want to talk about some areas for improvements where we are going to be focusing our attention and resources for the next year. And I'd be happy to take some questions, I'm sure. So highlights. 6 of our 8 assessments show positive growth over the last 3 academic years. This is something we're extremely proud of. We also know that, and as you probably heard on the radio or whether in the newspaper, when I was asked to give a statement about this, the 14% increase in terms of primary mathematics over 3 years is something that we're very proud of. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why we believe that we've seen those results and what efforts did we make that had that impact. The strong improvement in our OSSLT results as well has been realized over some period of time. So there is a steady growth there. So, and I will show that in the next slide. You will see in these six slides, you'll see steady growth in our reading, in our writing, in our grade 3 mathematics, again, that 14% rise in the last 3 years. Our grade 6 reading has remained, while it's a positive growth, it's very slow, but it is at a good percentage right now. And although we need to be higher, grade 6 writing as well, we see growth. And OSSLT, we've certainly seen growth over the period of the 3 years, although we see a slight decline from last year to the year before. We know that the impact of the days, the 30 snow days yesterday, had an impact on us. So we're still seeing positive growth in these 6 areas, despite the fact that we know that that impacted us, especially in grade 9 mathematics, and you'll see that later on. We had some schools which had to write the grade 9 math EQAO in SEM 2 or semester 2 after the course was done. So these students knew, they were fully aware that whatever they scored on that test would not count. In that case, it was not counting towards their mark. So we had students who came in and were literally click, 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 done. So even though we encouraged and tried to get them to focus and do their best, they were not that focused on it. So we know that impacted our grade 9 marks. I'm not making excuses. But that did have an impact on us. We still don't see our grade 9 math where we want it to be. And when I come to that in our areas for improvement, that certainly is an area that we are focused on. So back to the highlights, we see the improvements that we made in a number of those areas. We believe is strongly aligned with the coaching and the professional development that we put in a very targeted and meaningful manner. Especially the math coaching for those grade 3 results over the last 3 years. The math coaching and the work that was done by Carla Whiteside and by Amy Doherty in that math admin coaching role has had a huge impact because they're in and the coaches have been in supporting the teachers and working with the teachers to improve the practices within those classrooms. We're also seeing the IPLTs, the itinerant primary literacy teachers, who are in working with the Acadians data, doing the testing, the diagnostic testing to understand where our students are at, and then applying structured reading approaches in those classrooms. They're modeling for the teachers. They're making sure that we're using the resources that you've approved or purchased over the last few years, our YouthLive resources, our Alexia licenses. Those have all been in place and we're seeing the results. And what it tells me is when we put in that dedicated time and effort and resources and money into those areas, we're seeing the results. Our teachers are getting the support, and the support is then turning into academic achievement for our students. Areas for improvement for us, certainly grade 6 and 9 mathematics. They've remained static, and both of them are not at a place where we want them to be to start with, and they are remaining static. So we have only seen small gains in primary and junior reading, and that was on the slide before. I highlighted as a success. They're static right now. They're above the 80 range, which is great. However, we need them to be higher, and we need to see more improvement there. So those are the results right there for our grade 6 math. I don't know if I could draw a straighter line. And grade 9 mathematics, certainly we're seeing that static result. So I wanted to make sure that we've highlighted that piece of it. For the strategic use of this data and what we're doing, we're using it to guide our instructional coaching supports. So in terms of coaching, a huge emphasis has been placed on our grade 3 and 6 classes in our priority schools over the last 2.5 years. So these priority schools were determined from EQA results 3 years ago. And we have been told, at least from a math perspective, we haven't been able to take our focus off of those schools. So we're maintaining our coaching within those schools. They're seeing the improved results. And we have been asking the ministry, and we're hoping that in the near future, we'll be able to also distribute some of those coaching supports into other schools as well, because right now we are being directed to focus on the schools that were struggling based on results from 3 years ago, which in some cases, some of those schools have done significantly better, and we would like to redistribute some of those coaching supports to schools who need them right now, but we've been told we need to focus on priority schools. So we're doing our best to distribute that coaching, but we do have to follow the model that we're guided by with the ministry. Our grade 3 schools with coaching, the grade 3 schools that I just talked about that have the dedicated coaching, 13 of those 14 schools with the coaching models have seen small to medium to large gains in their primary EQA results. And by small, I mean a couple of percent. So we might be talking a few more students than the previous year, achieving a level 3 or 4 or provincial standard or better. By large results, we have some schools achieving 40 to 45% better in their math results. Those can all be seen on the EQA website as well. When you scroll through each school, you can look at the individual results and you will see some schools will be achieving upwards of almost 50% improvement in the last 3 years. Now, you have to take a little bit of that with a grain of salt because if you're talking about 20 students in a cohort, then 45% are 9 students. So you have to be, and those 9 students could have achieved 2.7 or 2.8 or 2.9, very close to the provincial average 4 years ago, and now they're achieving slightly better. So again, I don't want to lean one side or the other. I don't like to make excuses, but I also don't like to, when I say that we're doing 50% better in one case, you have to look at that very specifically and you have to look at it with some detail. Our grade 6 school with coaching, the grade 6 schools with coaching, of the 17 schools impacted by coaching, 9 of those schools realized improvement, 7 saw little growth, and 1 school actually declined. So the coaching seems to be working far more effectively in our primary grades, and that's why next year our focus needs to be in our junior math, and it needs to be in our MTH1W. And when we look at our language scores, our literacy scores, through grade 3, 6, and into OSSLT, while we're going to continue to offer excellent language instruction and continue to focus in that area, we need to be hyper-focused on our junior and math and our grade 9 math. So we need to see that improvement. So overall, 93% of our primary scores improved, 53% of our junior scores improved with the provision of math coaching. So this data supports what we know. If we provide educators with supports they require through pedagogical coaching and time, we improve instruction and academic outcome trajectory for our students. This also helps us to determine resource allocation needs and our professional development foci for the year. So moving forward, we need to keep our foot on the gas in terms of literacy and mathematics coaching. We need to enhance our efforts in our D-string grade 9 math instructional support. And I strongly believe that that junior math needs to be a focus for us. So those are that's all the data that I have for you from the reports. I'd be happy to take any questions from you.
Thank you. Trustee Lutz.
Thank you. For the chair, I just have a question because we know it's a different group of students, like each of these results. But if we had included just one more year, we could have compared the aggregated results for the same cohort.
Yes.
From grade 3 to 6 and 6 to 9 at least. Heck, if we included more, we could go 3 to 9. And I'm just wondering if those aggregated results are looked at for the same cohort and how the trends look based on those. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That's a good observation because the test did change and move to the online version 4 years ago. So we do have those cohort results now to look at. We're seeing in some places where we're seeing improvements and we're not seeing improvements in others. We're seeing some of the some similar results. We're also a little wary because 4 years ago, we were still seeing the impact of, I hate to use the C word, but COVID. Those students were coming out and we were seeing some depreciated results in some of those cases, as it was the first year on an online EQAO platform. So we're a little hesitant to use those results from 4 years ago, but I think the cohort results will probably bear a lot more benefit for us next year when we can compare year 2 to year 5. We certainly do have the cohort results right now to compare 3 to 6 and 6 to 9. Yes, I did not include that in the report here.
That's student trustee Gill.
So I just have like a general question. I don't know if you can answer this or anybody else who would work in, but once we de-streamed grade 9 math,
across the board. Was EQAO altered in any way to be targeting math skills learned in a D-stream class? Or is it still expecting students to be able to answer things as they would have learned academically, even though we are inadequately supporting their ability to be able to take this test and perform like we want them to be able to show data that we're proud of all the time?
It's a good question. Thank you. So prior to the de-streaming, there were two types of tests for grade 9. There was an academic and there was an applied grade 9 math test. Now there's only one. And it is aligned with the de-stream MTH1W course. So it is curriculum aligned now.
Trustee Great.
I must say, I found your verbal presentation far more informative than the written one. But looking at the next steps in the written presentation, it doesn't seem to promise much in the way of change or improvements.
Mhm.
But I'm sure you can move forward on the basis of what you mentioned verbally. I'm still disappointed about the fact that at the grade 3 and 6 level, in language and in math, we're still 6% to 8% below the provincial average. And of course, as you pointed out, our grade 6 math is at minus 11%. These are very disappointing. I would have hoped for, because I know you put a lot of work into this, and I would have hoped for more significant improvements in the short term. So I'd like you to comment on that. And then I have a question specifically for Director Keene.
But not a question, you just like me to comment?
Yeah, I mean, basically, if you want me to put it in form of a comment, what initiatives, what significant initiatives do you have planned for the coming year that are actually going to make a difference? I mean, I know you've mentioned a number of things in your report, but many of those things have been tried already for the last year and a half, have not moved this very much forward.
So in the two areas that I talked about where we're stagnated, like we're seeing in grade 6 and grade 9, I agree, we're disappointed. We want to see improvement in those areas. In terms of a comment, I'm disappointed. I'm sure the staff are very disappointed in seeing that as well. What we will be doing is we will, as you said that we're seeing areas of success. We're seeing high areas of improvement. We're seeing some schools, as I said, with massive improvements in terms of their scores. We're trying to take what is happening in some of those schools, and we're trying to replicate that in other schools, although no one school is the same. No staff are the same, no students are the same. But we know that the recipe that does work is the model that we have in place for where the coaching is taking place. In the primary grades especially, 93% of those students we're seeing great improvement. And that's coming because they're coaching using best practices in terms of math, moving from concrete to representational to abstract. They are supporting one another through that coaching model. They're following an instructional model of improvement where they are diagnosing or looking at what students are doing. They're trying best practices, they're retesting, and then they're coming back and they're trying it. They're dialoguing, they're working together to make improvements within the class until they see that improvement. And they're seeing it in those places where that coaching is taking place. So we, in terms of the plans for next year, we're working on plans right now. We have nothing finalized at this time. We're hoping that we share this closer to the end of the year. Also, a number of these plans have budget implications. But we would like to put some of those supports in the schools, in other schools. we'll rely on the government as well to be flexible in terms of where we can put that coaching. Right now, as I said, we're focused just on the schools that were struggling 3 years ago. Yeah, in terms of a comment or answering that question, I think we continue to do the things that we are doing well because we are seeing improvement. In 6 of 8 areas, we're seeing improvement and growth. I know we're not at the provincial average. I don't like comparing myself just to the provincial average. If anything, I want our students to exceed where the province is at. And that's what we all believe, and we believe we can get there. It's just a matter of need to do the same, the things that we're doing right now, and we need to be putting that effort into it across all our schools.
Respond to that, and then we can ask your question.
And I got a question for you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you, Superintendent LaFave, for the presentation and the response there. What I'd like to say, in answer to your first question, is I'd like everybody in the room to recognize some of the challenges that being water faces that are unique to other boards. Geography is one. It is significant. The distance people have to travel, our inability to bring staff together, staff shortage of all those things. What we are focusing on, and what the senior team has risen to the challenge of, is a scale. So scaling what good practices that Superintendent LaFave talked about. What we can't have is a group of teachers in Meaford get together and learn to teach math really, really well in the primary grades. And that not happening in other schools. So scale is challenging in Blue Water, but it's key. And that's exactly what Superintendent LaFave is talking about. Identifying those good practices, highlighting them, and finding ways to ensure that that good quality teaching was happening everywhere. So coaches to do that. I will also say, quite frankly, we, all of the budget pressures that we talked about earlier, make it challenging to have release times of training. And that is pretty key. So the other piece that I do want to highlight, each of the senior team in their portfolios have worked very hard to narrow our focus for improvement this year to really, the phrase I've been using is bite off what we can chew and make sure that if it's grade 9 math and grade 6 math, that's going to be our focus, and that's where we put our attention, our energies, and our dollars to see results there.
Ask a question. Sure. That raises briefly the issue of professional development, which I think is absolutely central to this. Have to reach the teachers in Meaford and the teachers in Tobermory. And I think you really have to get all of the teachers and all of the administrators on the same page, very committed to specifics that will move us forward. Are you comfortable that's what you're doing? Professional development?
Thank you through the chair. I would say yes. What we have done, and a little background for folks, the ministry used to provide specific dollars for professional development, specifically for educators. When the staff shortages started to escalate, the ministry funneled that money into coaches. And so they told us directly, we're not providing you money for release time for teachers because you said you can't get teachers to backfill those positions for training, so we'll give you coaches instead. Coaches are a very effective model for scaling outward if you can get enough coaches to reach those. But I will say that we are, as Superintendent LaFave talked about, there's narrowing of what does good math look like, what does good literacy look like. There is a revamping of professional activity days. So there are a lot of plans in the works to do exactly as you said, try and improve the model of professional development, try and find dollars for professional development and try to maximize coaching.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Atkinson.
Just a comment. I was at a school last night for an SCC meeting, and of course EQAO was the hot topic of the night. And it is a priority school as well. And the presentation that was given, it broke it down to where they were at level 1 and then how many that when they wrote in grade 6 went to level 3, some even jumped to level 4, which was very good. And it was marked to the literacy and math coaches. And the big question of the night was, Tracy, can you find some money to have grade 6 literacy and math coaches? And I said, I will talk to my money umbrella. But that was a concern because we did see where in grade 3, the numbers were high and then they kind of dipped in grade 6. But I'm also wondering if in grade 6, they just want to get through it as well. And are they doing the same as grade 9? Click, 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 click. I don't know, but it's a question I've often had, if it's maybe a problem. I know I sat in when it was in paper to help scribe for one of our spec ed kids. And it was, we did 1 and then we did 2, then we did 3 and then we did 4 and then we were back to 1. So I'm just wondering if that's maybe some of our problem as well. I don't know, because we don't teach the test. And so I don't know, but anyway, the parents in Ayton were very, very happy with the EQAM scores. And Janice, the administrator, had a beautiful presentation. It was broken, her presentation was broken down to male and female, like gender, and even to the point of the questions at the end of the test where, am I a good writer? Or, you know, the questions I'm talking about, and their biggest majority, they all were good writers. But it brought a different insight to me because although I do appreciate your presentations and Wendy before you, that was just broken down a little bit more for me to understand. And so I just, the parents are very thankful for the literacy and math coaches, and their marks went considerably high. They've got work to do. We all have work to do, but to see that positivity in a school that was struggling for many different reasons was very positive. So it all kind of aligned into tonight. But I just wanted to say the math coaches and the literacy coaches are well appreciated in my neck of the woods.
So you're referencing Normandy.
Yes, I am. Yes.
And they have had some tremendous results and improvements over the last few years. In part, I mean, that administrator that's there, as well as the coaching, has been phenomenal. And that's a true testament to the work that can be done within a school. You do talk about, there are three surveys that go along with EQA. There's 3 sets of data. There's achievement data, and there's attitudinal data or the survey, and then the contextual data that tells you a little bit about the students that wrote the test. So that attitudinal data is very important as well. We look at that very closely. We see a huge drop in our grade 6 students saying that they're not, after they don't enjoy math. And that's across the province as well. We see a dip provincially in our grade 6 results across the province. So it's not unique to Bluewater. We have worked, Amy Doherty, the math admin coach, and I went to Niagara. The Director Keene introduced us, he introduced us to a colleague down there, and we went down, spent a day talking to them about some of the amazing results and improvements that they've made, including grade 6 and grade 9 math. And what I just described to you in terms of our hyper focus in terms of the grade 6 and grade 9 math is as a result of that visit. What I saw there was very intentional work that's done in those areas with coaching and with the model that we're talking about, that AJ and I are talking about right now.
Steve Peters.
In regards to the data for the grade 6 math, were you able to kind of glean anything with the level 2s? Like how many along that level 2 spectrum are kind of like, most of them are 2+, like it's just 1 or 2 right answers that would get them into that level 3. Is there any data there that?
Yes. It's frustrating. I can tell from your face, probably one of those teachers who you saw the results and you would see how many students were probably a couple of questions away from being a provincial standard. But I don't want to make excuses. Yes, we have a number of students who are sitting at like very close, meaning a couple of additional questions getting right, and they're at provincial standard. All of a sudden, we see 60% turn into 80% in some schools. But again, I'm not about making excuses, and I'm going to go back to actually a comment that another trustee made around not teaching to the test. There's a bit of over the years, I think that's changed a little bit because the EQA test really is so closely aligned with the curriculum. And when you teach, you're not teaching to the test. What you're teaching to is the concepts and the knowledge and skills that are aligned with those curriculum pieces that EQA tests. But you're not teaching to the test, you're teaching to those curriculum content pieces, and those are important. So the school boards like Niagara that have done really well, they do teach to those concepts really closely because I think what it does, I know what it does, is it then has the teachers more focused on what they need to be focused on versus focused on, let's say, a task that they've always enjoyed doing that they think helps the students along a certain path, but it doesn't. So it keeps them very focused on what is most important. And in that case, it's what's closely aligned with the curriculum.
Trustee Craig?
Other question for the director. I'm quite curious about your quite impressive experience in Thunder Bay in improving the EQAO scores. That pulling up the socks of those students, those schools in the Thunder Bay region, in general around literacy and math. I'm wondering if there is much of what you learned there and what you employed there that you are now pressing upon our schools. And if that's what you're after is in line completely, as I expect it is, with what our superintendent has described.
Thank you, Trustee Craig, through the chair. I would say that the principles that the success that I experienced with a really strong team are in play at Blue Water. One of the first things that sort of transformed my personal learning journey for math improvement was going to Niagara and speaking with that board. What I will also say is that I did not, the team that I worked with did not face the challenges that we face at Blue Water. I could bring in every grade 3 teacher in the district for an afternoon of training, not pay mileage, not have to have 16 rooms, had, there were about 40 instructors per grade. So 40 classrooms per grade. So used 4 PAAs afternoons to focus on that. Was able to bring in school improvement teams from every school for a half-day training 5 times a year. So part of that is because we just did not face the same challenges geographically. I'm not looking, and my conversation with Superintendent Lefebvre and the team is not about replicate. It's about what are the principles. The 5 things that changed our success were a consistent resource that was used, significant coaching models, professional development, AQ courses, and an assessment. And that's probably the exact same message that Keith and his team got from Niagara. So in principle, absolutely, we will see some of those reasons for success at play here, but we will not be able to replicate on either Niagara nor my experience at Lakehead simply because we are just a different board and we're faced with different challenges.
Are there any other questions or comments? I just have a comment for a standardized, go ahead.
But, this isn't like a question, okay, the legislation is more in general. When the board decided to make grade 9 de-streamed, or grade 9 math specifically to be de-streamed, does that mean that we're never gonna have academic math again? Because I think that in my personal experience, as a grade 12 student now, grade 9 is like freebie year, like that's the year where you test out how does an exam work,
how do we even open the locker? It's your trial everything. Grade 10, you start getting a bit better at it. You start becoming a little bit more confident. That's why you see them like taking up more space in the hallways and stuff. And then in grade 11, when all your grades start to matter, you're like, okay, now I know I can actually focus on these specific things. This is what I'm good at. This is how I approach taking tests. This is how I can execute things that'll get me like high grades. You start becoming an overall more like confident and just like a better student, in my opinion. And then in grade 12, you can finally perfect everything. And you're finally doing things that are setting you up for university, because once you get to university, nobody really cares if you did B stream math in grade 9. They're not going to accommodate for somebody who didn't learn math to a high enough degree. They're just going to say, oh, well, you don't know how to do this. You're going to struggle for many, many more hours in the library compared to other people in the exact same program. So that's just my question.
Oh, okay, so student trustee Gill, I'm gathering by that, I'm gonna ask the question back to you, that you felt that grade 9 math was not a year that you learned a lot. Is that what you're saying?
It was a year that I wasn't expected a lot of.
Okay, so then I can answer your question now. The answer is that we need to do a better job at teaching MTH1W, because if you did not feel that you were challenged or that it was not something where you learned, then we did not do a good enough job in terms of differentiating and applying universal designs through learning to make sure that you were feeling challenged and you were learning and you were pushed to achieve your maximum potential, just like every other student should have been pushed to reach their potential. So then it's on us then. If you were feeling that way, that tells me that we need to change, and that's exactly what I started with. We need to focus on how we teach MTH1W, because clearly from the results and clearly from what I hear from the student trustee, we're not doing it well enough.
Dr. King, back to me.
Thank you for that passionate query, student trustee Gill. I'd like to give you some context. So school boards did not make the decision to de-stream math. It was mandated by the Ministry of Education. While I absolutely empathize with your desire to be a successful student, you can kind of, my own voice would be a little more serious about that in their time. But you should know that that decision was rooted in data that demonstrated very, very clearly that racialized and minoritized students were way overrepresented in applied mathematics, way overrepresented, and that they were underrepresented in academics. So the streaming was happening before they got into high school. And because of, no streaming in elementary school, except if French immersion often did that. But what was happening was minoritized students were not, I'm not gonna say being profiled, but they were certainly being channeled into applied math at an incredibly unfair and inequitable. So that was the decision behind that. There are some school boards who went ahead and de-streamed grade 10 courses as well, because the question being, can a 13 or 14-year-old make the decision about whether they want to be university bound or not? And so what was happening is when you went into that applied stream, you never got out. You just didn't get out. And if your teachers in grade 8 said you better go in grade 9 applied math, then that was it. There were occasional students who did, but it was very difficult to get back into the academic and therefore university stream. So the decision was really rooted in equity and inclusivity. But I will say to Superintendent Fay's point, we need to, and not just Blue Water, because the provincial scores in D-stream math are challenging. So that is something that needs to be improved upon. It is a case where a decision was made rooted in equity without really knowing how we were going to do it well, but saying, let's get this done and let's make this happen, and then leave it to boards to do it well, and we will work hard to improve on that.
Just to add to that, we are one of the last provinces within even the G7 countries to de-stream up to grade 9. Most have moved away from, to not de-stream. So they have already de-streamed, and we were one of the last ones to move de-stream to grade 9, and indeed some have moved to a grade 10.
Trustee Farmas, did you?
Yeah.
Trustee Lutz?
I'm just gonna quickly answer the chair that, the further comment about de-streaming. Grade 9 was de-streamed in the 1990s and then became streamed again, and now it's being de-streamed again. So you never know what the future will hold. And I just want to, because I did experience grade 9 once upon a time in the dark ages.
Jared, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Just by losing also the academic math, I noticed that in several other courses within the math curriculum in high school, the foundation of academic math seems to be still, a grade 9 academic math still seems to be in the grade 11 functions, grade 12 calculus, grade 11, so grade 12 functions. And so by losing that academic math, I'm not sure if the other courses have been changed adequately to prepare, right? So I think that the foundation is not there. So when you get to grade 12 calculus and you don't have the grade 9 experience, right? So, and math is just building, so it's, I have a question about that.
There have been some changes to the calculus course specifically. I taught it prior to the change, so right now you look very little at integration, any type of differential equations. However, now we just barely start to talk about some of the concepts that we talked about quite a bit in a number of years ago. So it has changed over time. But I can tell you, it still adequately prepares you for university. My daughter is an architectural engineer. She graduated, did phenomenally well coming out of West Hill and then OSD. And she's a successful engineer right now, and she did quite well in her math. So I know, looking at the courses that she took and how she progressed, the math courses have changed though over time because the D-stream math course changed, the other courses changed.
I just want to thank you for your comments because I do remember even when grade 13 disappeared and the students were coming out of grade 12 into university and had lost a whole year. And I know some of our teachers went to the universities to try and bridge to figure out what was missing. So it's a conversation. The comment I was going to make is, EQAO being this standardized test feels like it's nothing, there's nothing standard about it. There's been so many variables that happen over time. The test gets reconfigured, it's delivered differently. Life happens and we have COVID and challenges that come out of that. And now the ministry is looking at it yet again. So it feels like there's a lot, grade 9 de-streaming and how does that impact our grade 9s writing it when they're long after they're finished their grade 9 math course. Like there's just so many variables and our board being our geography that goes with it. So it's a really important conversation, but it feels like there's a lot to deal with on it. Last comment, trustee Greg, and then we're gonna move on to others.
Sure, I'm just curious about the comments that might come from you or the director. What degree has the de-streaming of math and other subjects as well at the grade 9 and maybe grade 10 level resulted in a reduction in the overrepresentation of racialized and lower income students being in the applied programs and never getting to college or university and it being successful?
We don't yet have the data to be able to answer that. Part of the reason is our demographic data in Blue, we've had very little uptake. In the last few times we've tried to do that, we had close to, I think we had 50% almost the last time, with 33% the first time. It's very difficult to draw conclusions when you have a limited sample set. And I would like to say kudos to Superintendent Lowe for getting the buses, making sure all the buses were running last Thursday, because we got the last of our grade 9 EQAO done that day. So thank you very much.
He was driving.
Trustee Greg, through the chair, I'll just give you a 5-second response. I can't speak to the provincial data. I can look into that for sure. I can tell you that at Lakehead, 32% of the students identified as Indigenous, self-identified, and the grade 9 credit accumulation rate in that went up by about 17% over the 2 years of the yield for D-stream. So I do have some personal experience where it has made a difference, but I don't know provincially, but I'll look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. That was an interesting conversation. Thank you. Next is our student engagement and well-being, and I'd like to invite Superintendent to speak for share.
Oh, I will. Sorry, I stopped when I closed it. Yeah, thanks.
Well, that was quite a presentation to follow. It's exciting now for Katie Simpson is here. Katie is our clinical manager here in the District School Board, and we're going to share with you our reports made on student well-being and engagement. Okay, so I'll set the stage for us. We got started this evening. So when we think about supporting student well-being and engagement, there are a few key pieces we need to look at and consider in the context. And we have them outlined on the screen here for you. But we want to make sure that we understand what this context is provincially and in Blue Water. We want to share with you that there are legislative and policy requirements around this work that relates to well-being and engagement. This work also aligns specifically with our own priorities in Blue Water and our multi-year strategic plan. And we want to end tonight by sharing with you some reflections on the data and then some next steps for us and what this looks like in Blue Water. So just to give the context of this work, there's a few key pieces to consider. The ministry, a number of years ago, brought to us the student achievement plan. And in the student achievement plan, they included specific indicators around achievement and well-being and success for students and some markers that they want school boards to be paying attention to and tracking. They're going to help us see how are we doing. And in this context, attendance data is included. That's a marker for engagement that the ministry would like us to look at. Suspension rates are included in that student achievement plan in terms of that engagement piece. And then there's a well-being component in that student questionnaire back to the EQAO that Keith was just speaking about, that student perception data. There's a well-being question embedded in there that gives student voice to well-being. So those pieces are markers that the ministry said to school boards. This is what you need to pay attention to. This is what you're going to be monitoring in your board to help us gauge engagement and well-being. We also found that in 2023 had the Budget and Outcomes Act come into play. And within this act, there were pieces related to well-being and requirements for school boards around this. Specifically, a PPM, so that's a policy and program memoranda that had requirements for school boards to develop mental health and well-being strategic plans, and that there were, again, indicators and work that school boards are required to do to monitor this data and implement programs in your district. So our mental health and addictions strategic plan is a tool we use, I guess, in Blue Water to monitor the work, to help us plan. And we meet as a collective. We have a mental health lead in our board that helps lead the work of that plan with support of Katie and, of course, the team. So these components work together to set the context in the province of Ontario for all school boards in this work. You're having me. You've heard me say this before, but good mental health is not separate from our learning. Oftentimes we think about this as one more thing on the plate, and you hear me say, it's actually the plate.
We cannot have learning without feeling regulated, without feeling that we are content, that we feel safe enough to be able to engage in something so vulnerable. If you think about it, strip down what actually is learning. I have to take risks, I have to challenge myself, I have to be having that sort of vulnerability to be able to have purpose and to find some, to put myself out there and from my peers on top of that. And then someone's gonna evaluate me on that vulnerable work that you guys do. And so we know not just students, but humans too can engage in that cognitive piece with, when we're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, disconnected or struggling emotionally. And schools are so well positioned to be able to be that first indicator of having that conversation about good mental health and engaging that. And we know that actually students are seeking that out within our schools, and we are the first pathway, more so than any other community agency or mental health service within our communities. Particularly even more so with all of the context that we've talked about with graders. And so what you're seeing up here is really sort of engaging if we can create what a mentally healthy school looks like through a strong felt sense of belonging, that proactive mental health promotion, early identification and support, identity affirming, culturally responsive practices, and then have clear pathways that students have to continuously repeat their story, or their story becomes sort of the main character and distracts them from being able to learn. Then we're able to sort of engage our students even more so. And so this is our PPM 169, which is what Lauren was sharing about in regards to legislation that that models what we are implementing here within Blue Water. So this was released in July 2023. And it had 11 indicators, everything from mental health literacy to absenteeism, to how we actually implement early identifications, our suicide prevention, our promotion and prevention, and of course, through that system navigation and those pathways with our partnerships. Under PPM 169, school boards are required to develop our 3-year strategic mental health and addiction strategy, and we post a 1-year action plan. So this is really where sort of the theory and the practice, or the theory of what we know, is getting put into action. How are we implementing it, and how are we doing it so that it's small steps to gain really big sort of implementation sort of factors. And here the visual is representative of something that should hopefully is a little bit more familiar to you over the years now since PPM 169, which is that tiered model. And it's represented in that triangle, meaning that the majority of our work, we do it really, really, really well. And we focus and we foster that foundational work of good, strong, mentally healthy schools. That it will make a lot of this work a lot easier. And then you see sort of more of that tiered approach with our second and third tier. And that's when the specialties come in, like the learning service, learning student support services, our tragedy response, any sort of collaboration that's a little bit more complex in that tier. And start leaning on those partnerships in our community as well. So this visual is a representation again of our mental health and addiction strategic plan as of 2022 and 2025. This is our infographic from there. We haven't developed our infographic yet for our other for our 2025 to 2028 strategic plan. And again, this is the meaningful work. This is what really sort of directs what our action is going to be. And it's now public facing. So on our website, you can see it. And in your report, we did link our 1-year strategic plan to this for 1-year action plan. So you can see the work that we're doing within Blue Water this coming year here. So now switching over to so what does the data tell us?
Yeah, so in your report that we shared with you, we shared some data. And this is the data that is included in our student achievement plan, or that SAP. The indicator for the ministry is actually worth to look at. And again, that's attendance data, suspension data, and then well-being data. So you can see in the report that if we're looking at attendance, we're looking at students that attend equal to or greater than 90% of the time. And you can see that we are sitting for 2 years in a row around that 37.5% of our students attend 90% of the time or greater. So obviously that means a significant portion of our students are not attending 90% of the time or greater. Now, we know there's some context to this data. For example, we know we are seeing always, in my time even as a teacher, there are students that have had part-time schedules. There's students that have been, I worked in school, for example, where lots of Fridays for hockey tournaments, gymnastics tournaments, and ski, actually ski racers, and they were gone every Friday all winter. That was a context that we just knew about in our school and that we accommodated and worked with. So we know that just looking at this number on its own, we need to dig deeper into the context because there are reasons. But related to attendance is also that idea of engagement or disengagement. And that's what we really want to pay attention to, is that engagement piece. So we wanted to know the stories about why are students not attending. We know we're seeing a trend in our early years of students trying alternative programs, for example, a couple days a week, like a forest school or an outdoor learning or something like that. So we're seeing a trend in the earlier grades and uptake there. So we know there's a story and context behind those attendance pieces. So in Katie's work, and she'll speak just a little bit to this, but the engagement piece for us comes into those disengaged students where we might see non-attenders, or we have the attendance counselors then getting involved because there is an actual attendance trend that we need to follow up on, and or we're offering alternative program like our SAL, like our supervised alternative learning for some of those students to keep them engaged with the school system. So I just wanted to provide context that we start with the data, but we need to dig deeper and know the stories. The stories then help us determine what are the next steps and what are the plans we need to put in place to improve the data. In terms of suspension data, we can see that we suspend a suspension rate a little bit higher than the province. The 2 years previous, we don't have this year's provincial data yet updated. And again, okay, we get curious. Why is that? What does that mean to us? So we need to then, of course, look into our data a little deeper and look at the context. What types of suspensions are we seeing? What length of suspensions are we seeing? What are the stories behind the data so that we can really be thinking about our next steps and our supports and where those need to be allocated. And in terms of the well-being data, you'll see there's a lot of NEs are not available. This is where the EQAO question around well-being grade 6, 9, and 10 students self-reporting. They're aware of mental health supports in the school. So it was added to EQAO last year, or sorry, 2 years ago and last year. So that's why you see there's some NAs there. And again, you can see that over 60% of our students are reporting that they are aware of mental health supports and services to seek mental health supports in our school. So again, that tells us a good proportion of our students know about our supports and services, but some are reporting they don't. So if there's students that don't know, we obviously need to keep sharing that information and message. So at a high level, these give us indicators to compare to the province, but as we talked about even with EQAO, that's one measure. We want to make sure we dig into local data and context to help us plan.
I'd love to dig in. So taking a look at what's next, this does really inform our price. And when we created in particular with our mental health side of things and in partnership with our equity plan as well, we did use a lot of this data to inform progress. And we got really excited about what that could mean so that we can be responding appropriately. Someone who's not attending, I get super curious about, is it because you know, life is so big right now and complex for them that that's getting in the way of maybe prioritizing learning. That's a different type of intervention than someone who is feeling really good and positive about themselves because they have something like skiing or hockey and they have a sense of community and purpose and things like that. And you're going to see different types there. And so we start getting deeper and deeper into the data, and it becomes interesting. But with our the data that we got from the EQA, I couldn't tell myself. It was kind of this moment of, obviously, those students who are achieving higher are feeling a stronger sense of belonging. It wasn't totally, you know, sort of in your face sort of data, but what was the love script of that? And those students who were level 2 students that we were talking about, there was a very significant piece that was sort of speaking to me about saying that they don't feel a sense of belonging. You start sort of unpacking that more, maybe curious about that more. So how do we make sure that people are feeling belonging to be able to feel that they feel good, so they can answer at grade 6, I am a good writer. It's a big difference, right? Okay, so where do we go from here? So our next steps. So we continue to focus on a coordinated effort and strengthen particularly that good for all tier 1 foundational work that we see when you walk into that school, when you feel that sense of belonging when you walk into that school. And that's all of our responsibility. That's including you guys, that's including anyone within our community as well. And then we start responding more particularly with more of that curiosity and the unpacking of that tier 1, tier 2 that needs really required intervention or partnership with our community partners. We're going to operationalize that mental health and addiction strategic plan, and we're going to see that really grow. And we've really sort of broken it down into pieces where they feel very manageable. That's over the next 3 years. And we're building on our past strategic plan. We're going to continue monitoring that data that our students are giving us. We're going to elevate their voice and also sort of capture their story as best we can. We're going to link it and sort of get curious about that connection back to academic achievement and outcomes. What is happening with our suspension trends? Are they particularly one student? You know, is it a one-time thing, or is there sort of a pattern to that suspension? And getting curious as to geographically and cultural, like school cultural sort of pieces of this as to what's happening in our district. And so we'll maintain alignment with the things that we've already started, which is that trauma-informed practice, having sort of a common language about what does it actually mean to be trauma-informed. And now with something like collaborative problem solving, we're putting a framework and making it actionable, not just sort of now we have an understanding of cultural responsiveness and trauma-informed practices, and we have a language, and now we are putting it into a framework that can be actioned and actually felt in the classroom. We work within our mental health leadership team to continue to monitor this data on a more regular basis, and then sort of do those check-ins with implementation and where we're at, and invite more of that evidence, measurement-based care into our practice, again, to see if our actual interventions that we're now implementing have positive feedback to what we're doing.
So in terms of next steps, I think what AJ or Director Keene and Superintendent LaFave already shared around narrow the focus. So pick a few key things. And then try to get that spread, right? Consistency across the district. So that we're taking the same approach in engagement and well-being. And we're doing that through things like Kate mentioned, collaborative problem solving as a framework, but it's a way of thinking about student behavior and how to model, teach, and respond to behavior. And what we're doing is trying to make a plan where all staff do get that training. So we've had teacher training, learning resource teacher training. We started with our educational assistant training this past PA day. So how can we get that kind of training spread across the district so we have common language? You know, we're all working in that common framework. So we're trying to take these big strategic plans, like a mental health and addiction plan, and big ideas and PPMs and bring it down to, really manageable, concrete steps that we can take to monitor the data and implement the strategy and then check up to see, did that strategy work? Let's end with our commitment, which is on the screen, to strengthen student well-being and engagement in Blue Water. Use the data to make informed decisions and create and maintain safe, inclusive, and thriving school communities. Thank you.
The trustees have questions or comments? Yes, sorry.
Yes, looking at the statistics here, I found myself wondering what on earth happened in 2023 such that our attendance levels dropped from 55.9% to 37.5%, and we were then 20 to 23% lower than Ontario as a whole. I'm talking about those students who attend more than 90%. What happened in 2023? And why is it, and if I can just add, and why has it not improved in 24-25?
Yes, when we to the chair, we ask the same question, you know, that is what we do, and that's what our teams do and our attendance counselors do, what is actually going on. And it is challenging in a way to figure out what is going on, because we actually have to talk to those students that aren't attending, or those schools that maybe have higher rates of non-attendance to get those stories. Like, when students don't attend, they don't fill out the survey that day necessarily to say why they're not attending. So we have to go and find that information. We do that, of course, through, staff at the school often know the kids and they kind of know the story and what's going on. Attendance counselors, mental health workers, honestly, teachers, EAs, they know a lot about, you know, what's going on with students. So partly we have to collect it anecdotally. Partly we know there are trends. I think Superintendent Lefebvre last year looked into inclement weather and does it count in this provincial data, which it does. So we in Blue Water, again, have to put that context of inclement weather being included in our provincial numbers. In saying that, we don't stop digging and looking, right? It's not just inclement weather, but you do need to know the stories. We know that mental health, anxiety, things like that, those be anecdotal stories we're hearing through our mental health team, our attendance team about, if you recall, we brought you data from our SAL forum and asked students about why it was hard to come to school. And that was around some of the anxiety and mental health pieces. So I, you know, that's a long-winded answer, but part of it is our context in Blue Water, and inclement weather honestly does impact the data. But beyond that, we know there's some trends around some mental health and anxiety that play in, and we know there's those younger students we're hearing from our schools that are doing those part-time schedules.
Yes. Somebody else is on the floor.
Yeah, I just have. Sorry, I'm just wondering if there's when kids come to school and your office coordinator is doing the attendance, is there a different coding that would be acceptable with the attendance system that they could help with that process of saying, you know what, yes, they're absent, but they're at sports, and yes, they're absent because they're sick or anything like that, just to kind of code things differently to kind of help maybe collect, you know, the data more.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. We do have coding in our system, so we can pull that, some of that data. Yeah, so you're right, something, some can help us, like illness status coded. Some of it's parent permission, like that's the code.
Yeah.
So in those cases, we may not know Why is the parent permitting the absence? Like, those are the ones where it's a little trickier to dig in, but things like illness, we can definitely track. We now have mental health through that PPM that Katie spoke about. There's actually a mental health absence code that can be used. So we could track that, for example, but some of it is parent permission. So it's a pretty broad category to capture.
Good question. Trustee Lutz?
And you agree with her, just to, add a bit of context to that as well. I know some parents, when they call in to say for arrival or attendance programs, they give the data. Some simply say, my child is absent with my permission, and that has more to do with their understanding of the system than necessarily with trying to obfuscate data. So yeah, so part of the problem with data collection is that it's not like a press 1 for this, press 2 for that sort of system. It's reliant on what is said, and it can be a stressful time for the parents when they're trying to remember to call in before certain times and whatnot. Anyways, but just to say that there are some challenges with that.
As a member of SEAC, I've come to have a lot of respect for the mental health programs and workers in our system. I'm very impressed, really, at how much you care. But what I wonder is whether you have a program in place that will identify and help you to engage with those students who seem to be struggling. And struggling is a big, broad category. It can include academic. Sometimes academic is just a symptom of something that's going on with that student, within that student's family. So do you have a way of, through the teachers and the principals, identifying students who are struggling emotionally, psychologically, socially, and as a result, therefore, have an intervention program that will help them?
Here, I'll let Katie take this one. She's really the expert in this area, but I will say just bring it down. I'll start by saying, again, we do tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And how we get at that in school, in general school, and it's something called an in-school needs team. So staff at school who are concerned about a student in whatever way it might be, whether it's academically, it's behaviorally, emotionally. There's a process that schools have that staff can bring that student profile to a team at the school and have a discussion to start thinking about interventions, referrals, what have we tried and what have we not tried? Is there some more assessment, et cetera? But yeah, so
It's a really big question for me, and I will go into the weeds about it. So I'll try not to, Michael, but you and I had some really rich conversations about this. And you, just the way you even framed it and the way that you sort of were able to identify it, that to me in a couple of years, you being so curious and without judgment and all that, not that was your push before, but that's what we need. We need that empathy. We need that curiosity. We need to learn and ask what is happening versus this, there's something wrong, that there's a deficit that we're gonna label, right? And so you've known me for 4 years now, and so the evolution of that question in itself excites me. And so maybe I can just leave it at that. I can't answer it. It's a fine balance between making sure that our teachers know mental health first aid, essentially, for lack of a better word, so they can know how to identify data, believing in themselves that actually they do have a whole lot of tools and agencies, and that relationship in itself is a tool. And when a kid comes to you, it's like, oh my goodness, it's contagious, or I don't know what to do. It's, oh my gosh, yes, of course, come in, let's talk about it. And that relationship in itself is regulating, because it's empathetic and it's nurturing in itself, and that could be enough, and believe that that could be enough of an intervention without thinking, call the expert, call the expert. And then it is still on this other side, how do we make sure that we're measuring intervention to providing the treatment that might be needed? We aren't diagnosing and we're not treating complex mental illness within a school context. But man, we can create a really incredible narrative that can compete with something that might be really difficult in their life that they're dealing with. And so if we can create that narrative to compete, that's going to be a lot more resilience building and fostering a lot more hope, which will go along a lot further in mental illness recovery than anything else. Yeah.
And last, question or comment to trustee Johnstone.
Yeah, it's the last comment, because I think that, you know, what's really important and why they brought mental health into school systems was because we know that students have to have good well-being or adequate or good enough well-being to excel in education. And I think that it's not two separate silos, but it's one, you could say one silo. And so that kids can be successful in the education setting and in their future endeavors. So I think that that's the most important thing, because if not, we're, you know, I mean, that's really it. You're bringing, you could say, the goals or the, you know, our strategic plan together for student success, and there's a base of well-being. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We have 3 committee reports. First, the trustee Atkinson to speak to the Special Education Advisory Committee from December 15th. And then my report here, it's pretty empty, so it's probably the electronic. Sorry.
So, we met, our last meeting of the 2025 year was on December the 15th. You will see in your package, or some will be in your package, we had a special guest, a student who reached out to me 4 years ago and asked me what I knew about amethyst. And I said, I'm sorry, I know absolutely nothing about it. I didn't even. I went home and did some research. Anyway, Hamish Sodi Easton, and I was allowed to use his name, was a child with some learning disabilities. And he, first of all, he started off at French immersion. That obviously didn't work. He went to Normandy to school there, and he came with some difficulties with his learning. So his mom and dad looked into Amethyst Demonstration School in London and started the process. I was fortunate enough to be with the process from the get-go. I've known the family for some time, from the learning resource teacher meetings to the mid meetings to the demonstrational school meetings. And it is quite the process. And I must say, attendance almost was this deal breaker of getting in. So that is, they do look at that very vastly in the application process. So for Hamish, he went, his day on Monday started at about 5:30. He got the bus and he arrived in London somewhere around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, depending on how many children were picked up. So he started his day learning. They used math hook, knowledge hook, math up, Acadian, Dyslexia, all of the programs that we are now using here at Blue Water. So it was easy for him to adapt to his learning. But you must think, instead of a class of maybe 20 students, he was in a class of 6 students. So a lot of one-on-one learning. And so he succeeded. And he was able to apply for a second year. Amethyst is only usually a 1 year program. And because there wasn't a lot of applications for his grade 8 year, he was able to attend again. Now, I said when he left home, he came home Friday about 5:30 in the afternoon. And I did ask for Superintendent LaFay, the meals were just okay. I said that was very important for me. But he did speak. Now, Hamish, knowing him for as long as I have, would never have stood up and gave a presentation. And there was a point where I really thought, okay, we need to wrap it up. But he just was flowing with his experiences, and it was really nice to see the enthusiasm and how he felt going into the situation, and what he took out of it was very, very heartwarming to see the progress. And he did transition back to Blue Water. He is in John Diefenbaker. He finished his first semester. He did well, he told me. He still says he has to watch his behavior. And I said, that's one day at a time. But it was very informative. Last year, we did have people from Amethyst present at SEAC. So we were all trying to learn more about it. And I can say now, I have a good grip on what Amethyst is about. And although it's not for every child, it was in his case a very successful experience. Now, I did jump down. We also had a presentation from our OYAP coordinator, Justin Graham. And we talked a little about the apprenticeship programs that are available. I believe the number is 339 different jobs that you can now do an apprenticeship program with. We talked a little bit about the SOS trailer, and I must say, Justin and Will are a fine fit for this job, because I have students knocking on my door in the morning asking me when Shifty is coming to Spruce Ridge. And I have to stop and think, 1 o'clock in the morning, who's Shifty? It's Justin. That's his name on his hockey team, right? So they adapt to him in the community as Shifty and Willie. So anyway, yeah, well, he works with Justin. So they are a great fit. And we remember back when Marilyn and I and Dave Barrett was OYAP at the time, and we had the excavating simulator, and how no company would have hired either one of us with our skills. But it is great for the students to participate in that. And moving forward, we received a report from the Be Safe team and our specialized technology team. It was great because it all seemed to intertwine with everyone's report on how things were running within the board. One thing I must say, when we made that difficult, well, it wasn't a difficult decision. We had to come up with the money to put the laptops in our grade 9 students. It has been proven to be a remarkable thing, especially with our spec ed students, because taking a laptop into a classroom where not everyone has one and you do, there's a stigma. Where now our spec ed kids are taking their laptops to class, using them because everyone else is using them as well. So they're not being centered out. So that is a huge, huge accomplishment that we've been able to get those laptops in our high school students. And hopefully, if we had a money umbrella, that we would be able to do it in our elementary student, but we'll stick with secondary for right now. And then we also received committee report from our community partners. And that is my report for December the 13th.
Any questions? Justin?
Thank you. Just a quick comment. I wanted to thank you for sharing the students' experience with Amethyst. I had the privilege of personally knowing more than a handful of students who have been able to attend, and the incredible benefit, not only on academics, but on self-esteem and motivation and so many other things for students is wonderful. And even the parents have been really, really hesitant about those early morning pickups, or once upon a time, those Sunday bus pickups. I have seen the benefit and have understood the value, so thank you for sharing with everyone who hasn't been blessed to know something to do, so thank you.
Next, trustee Atkinson, the special education report from January.
So, our January meeting was held on the 26th, and it was a meeting for the record books. We had one heck of a time. We couldn't get the audience to work. We had a Teams meeting within a meeting. It was, I'm sorry, you have to laugh about it. We just rolled with it. We had technology issues, and I shared with Lauren and another lady, and then Michael shared with Colleen, and we were on Teams within the boardroom. It was just one for the record books, but we accomplished a lot. But and I did not break the microphone. I just want that on record. It worked when he handed it to me, and I used it, and it was. Yeah, I didn't break it. I promise. And on to the report. Our partner from Community Living, Marlene Webb, has asked that we have Avion Campbell, our Human Rights and Equity Advisor, come and speak to us once a year. We had him last year, and she reached out to me and asked for that presentation again. And then Lauren and her team made it happen. And one thing I want to share with you, I won't go into because of the essence of time, is equity in special education. And he used a ladder as an example, and you had a student on the bottom rung, a student on the middle, and a student on the top. That doesn't mean they're not getting the same education. It's what they're comprehending. So child on the bottom will maybe know what 8 crayon colors are in the box. The student in the middle might know 12. And then your student on your top ring might know 32, because that's what they're capable of learning. It's not that we're not treating them equally. It's what they can retain and what they're learning. So I like to remember that. It was a great presentation. We learned more and more as we listened to Avion. We received a presentation and an update on the work of ourselves, which let me just, that is our special education lead teachers, acronyms. Also from our long-term suspension and expulsion team and our supervised alternative learning. We received reports from them. Something new to SEAC, it was a recommendation from one of our new members that posting SEAC agendas on our website prior to our meetings. We've never done that before. Other boards have. We investigated that. We have decided to give it a try. They will be posted on the late Wednesday afternoon after the superintendent meeting for approval of agendas. So Chanel will post it either late Wednesday afternoon or early Thursday morning. And then the anticipation, the hope is that families will log on with the phone number on the bottom of the agenda. I don't know, I'm trying to be open-minded and hopeful. And then again, I will have to read the terms of our reference where guests are not allowed to speak and they won't be recorded in the minutes as attendance. And that's something that we've had to do at SEAC with guests, that just to the process, right? And again, as I said earlier at our last meeting, we received a letter from the Simcoe County District School Board regarding funding with students with special needs and mental health needs. And these are ongoing letters that we get quite often. And something also new to SEAC is we applied for a PIC grant and we received it, and we will be having a Special Education Advisory Committee networking night, similar to PIC, but a smaller version. Around the end of April, we have a subcommittee meeting on February the 17th to kind of brainstorm. And so we're looking forward to that. To get parents out for those frequently asked questions or those difficult questions and just to put a awareness for special education parents. So that's more to follow on that. Sorry.
Sounds excellent. Questions, comments, trustee Johnstone?
It's just because I haven't been involved in CIAC for a long time. But are your meetings open to the public and are they recorded or are they live streamed?
Oh, gosh. That was an ask. We did get asked that. No, we do not live stream. Our meetings are not recorded. They are open to the public to come in and observe, similar to our board meetings where they're guests. Usually they email myself or Chanel letting us know that they're coming to a meeting. Something might on the agenda, Learning Disabilities of Ontario were to speak last October and it didn't happen and we had some interest there. But no, they're not live streamed and they are not recorded.
Invite somebody, trustee Atkinson, to speak to the Parent Involvement Committee from January 12th.
You'll be so tired of hearing me speak. So the Parent Involvement Committee, we met virtually on Monday, January the 12th. We have some new members that have attended. Veronica Hissman from Annabelle Sotto. Yes, she has joined our committee, brings a new ideas and understanding of what parent involvement and SEC are. I'm happy to say that cyber safety presentation by Paul Davis has been scheduled for June the 1st. And that is virtual, I believe, is the key. It's virtual.
No, he wants that to be in person. So if there'll be an, yeah.
And now you correct me if I'm wrong, because I likely have 29 applications for PIC, $21,000 in grant going out.
Approximately, yeah.
So those 29 applications might not necessarily be 29 schools. If they have an elementary and a secondary panel, 2 applications. So that was, it was exciting to start hearing what some of the schools are doing for their parent involvement grant. Now we are, and I've spoken to Superintendent Lipson about this at CIAC. We're looking for 10 members from Old Town down the Highway 10 corridor. I've did some emails. Spoke to some parents that I know. So I would like to ask Trustee Peters and Trustee Craig, when you're out in your schools, to just maybe put that bug out, and maybe even the Kincardine area. We don't have anybody in Kincardine. No, we have Mandy from the peninsula and Aiden is Universe. So all members are welcome. And there were talking about putting together a questionnaire and to update our bylaws and procedures and the know-how. That's also coming. But we didn't put it on staff to do the work. We gave it to the parents to do the work because it's not fair to ask even his staff to do the work. So that could be coming in our March meeting report. So that is all I have to report. I am done talking. Unless anyone has a question.
Thanks so much. Are there any questions? From the HR. Are there any unanimous motions? There was no new business at the beginning of the meeting. Are there any announcements?
That was Willie, gave his
opinion that friends will come early, we're gonna hold that and road it till we have.
The trustee calendar of events is provided again for your information. I realized this week I have to follow my own advice and check it because I had forgotten. So pay attention and let people know if there's a change. Thank you for a really excellent meeting tonight. It's a lot of good discussion. And our meeting is adjourned at 9:05 on the Trustee Atkinson, and please be safe on your way.